And we're so excited to welcome her on to start talking about her wonderful project with Martha's Vineyard Shellfish Group, Inc.
Thank you, Tanoia. So our eeBLUE project this year is expanding social license for public and private aquaculture on Martha's Vineyard. My name is Nina Ferry Montanile, and I'm the Education and Outreach Manager for the Shellfish Group. For those of you who aren't familiar, Martha's Vineyard is a small island about 6 miles off the coast of Massachusetts. Our partners in this were West Tisbury Public Library, Honeysuckle Oysters, and Zach Gordon, who was our NOAA liaison. And essentially, we are a small and mighty restoration hatchery. Tanoia, if you want to switch the slide. Thank you. So the need for aquaculture literacy in our community is really making sure that people understand the term aquaculture and its environmental benefits. We are a very small community where word of mouth is king. There's locavores, there's environmental warriors. We're big on agriculture and farm stands. But the old guard, like the people who grew up fishing as a way of life, don't consider municipal and public resources as an environmentally friendly way to eat locally. And similarly, the new people that have moved to the vineyard don't consider aquaculture as a way to like feed your family and help the environment. So we're really just connecting all of these things, breaking down barriers, connecting old and new, connecting town to towns. In Massachusetts, aquaculture has home rule, so it's different in every town. The way that the towns grow shellfish, the way that you can harvest it, who can get permits, how much it costs. And so one of our main focuses was to use that term aquaculture broadly and widely, and to really drive home that it's been a pivotal industry here in our community for much longer than the advent of oyster farms. So although we love oyster farming and that is the face of aquaculture here, whenever we introduce people to our municipal hatchery or quasi-municipal, we're also a 501c3, but our primary role is to work with all 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard. They always say, "Oh, do you grow oyster seed for the oyster farmers?" And we don't really. We grow most of our seed, bay scallops, quahogs, and oysters for the towns. So we just want to connect all of those things. This picture here was a really cool program where we worked with the library to bring a huge group of people to a riparian landowner's farm where they shared this generational history of commercial wild fishery oyster farming. So they, harvested the wild oysters, but then on this farm, they actually processed all of them and canned them and shipped them off of the island. And so many people didn't know this. And then we also brought in our municipal shellfish constables, and they talked about the municipal oyster farm that is in that pond today, which again, so many people don't know that there's still municipal aquaculture happening. Next slide, please. So we were able to facilitate a lot of really fun, cool programs. For us, the wild thing was regularly giving knives to children. So here we have a 5-year-old who was getting a shucking lesson from one of our hatchery staff. We did multiple shucking lessons with small children and also clamming lessons. On the flip side of that, we brought touch tanks to adult only events. And just seeing the unbridled joy on adults' faces when we have a touch tank that's there just for them and not for them to see how their child is reacting to it was really, really cool. We connected, at least 8 oyster farmers with the public in these different aquaculture programs so that they could share meaningful environmental and industry information. We also used documentary films, and we partnered with a local artist to highlight aquaculture, the science behind the industry, and farming. Next slide, please. So our impact, we were able to do a lot. We facilitated 63 aquaculture focus lessons and events. Part of that was because of our partnership with the libraries. It was so easy to sit down with them and schedule out series of events. And then when word of mouth got out, or when people came to those library events, then they invited us to their events. It spurred lots of partnerships with environmental organizations, private organizations. Everybody wanted us there talking about aquaculture. And then each time, again, we hosted these programs, we really realized how much we needed to define just the basic term aquaculture, to really drive it home that when you're out there recreationally shellfishing, that is a product of public aquaculture. When you are eating oysters at a restaurant, that is part of the aquaculture industry. So we really wanted to include everybody, those who grew up doing it, those who have never done it before, really young kids, all the way up to our older generations. Next slide, please. And one of the coolest things to come out of it, again, with the word of mouth, a local environmental magazine heard that we were out there teaching all these aquaculture programs, and their, adult reporter all the way over on the right there, Lucas, he was like, I've never been out clamming. And it's hard to get out there clamming if you've never done it before. Will you take me out there? So we brought out the reporter, we brought out the photographer. It was such a fun morning. We went with the Shellfish Constable as well. She talked about her municipal aquaculture. And then, unbeknownst to us, we actually made the cover of the magazine. And so it's a local environmental magazine that has regional offices and regional impact. And this particular issue is on the stands for like 6 or 7 months. So we have gotten so much, positive feedback and interest from people who read this article and were like, oh, who is the Shellfish Group? Can we come see your hatchery? Will you take us out clamming? Can you help us? Next slide. Yeah. And so what's next? We are turning 50 this year. So what we spent the majority of the grant funding on was really curating these documentary films and working with a local filmmaker. So we have 7 documentary films to start sharing widely. We were able to preserve that history, so that oral history, so that we can teach youth and newer islanders the cultural significance of shellfishing and the working waterfront, and how the commercial aquaculture industry started here. We're going to continue doing all the work with schools and local organizations, continue running our clubs, and we're going to put a more heavy focus on the local food aspects and food security. So what we'd love from everybody in this group of educators is just to find more education graphics and links and shareable videos that really highlight Northeast shell fisheries. That is all.
Hi, Nina. I also have to bring oyster knives to a public school next month.
Oh, yes.
And I was wondering if you had any advice for how to keep them safe. And I saw your oyster boards and the gloves and the cloths, and that was about all I could think of, but I'm a little worried.
Yeah, so I put together like a shucking kit, and we have kids' gloves specifically. So we set up all the gloves where kids can reach them. we set up all the knives in an area just out of reach. And we set up a program so that it's done in stations. So if there is a kid, everybody gets the introduction. You need to wear gloves. These are very sharp. You need to have an adult with you if you are trying to open shellfish. And so the kids all run up and they put on the colorful gloves, and everybody feels very important. But then they might go to a different station while they're waiting to get their turn shucking with an adult, or they might just stand there and watch their friend shuck while they're waiting for their turn. So it was really controlled. Like we set up the shucking station by using a cutting board. So like this is shucking stations 1, 2, and 3. We have 3 adults and 3 kids at a time can step in and do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great advice and super great process. Thank you so much, Nina.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And it was an awesome process. Thank you for the support.